Hello, hello, welcome. Today I am going to be spilling the tea about my queer coming out journey and this very specific lens of heterosex versus queer sex, and not from a space of competition, rather from a place of observation and experience as an intimacy coach, and what it was like for me to go from only being with cis men and having a massive career and experience and education as an intimacy coach, and then having my queer awakening and what it was like for me as an intimacy coach to be having queer sex. So I think this is going to be a very fun, curious, exciting conversation. And I've been wanting to share this for, the last 2 years. And I really do believe in impeccable timing. So I'm excited to be here with you now and see what comes through and see what wants to be shared. But I just have to show you that this is the mug that I will be spilling the tea out of, except it's coffee. Okay, so to share with you my story, my queer coming out, I feel like it happened twice. I feel like it happened first from the age of 14 until 32, 33. And then it happened again around the age of 32, 33. So my first crush was when I was 14. It was in karate class, and it was with this tomboy girl. But I remember inside feeling like who is this person? And I had such big feelings for this person, and I never let it come out of my head. I never let it come out of my body, but it was so obvious to me inside that I had a crush on this person, who later in life ended up transitioning and is now like trans masc. And at the time, I didn't even know that you could be anything other than a gay man, because where I grew up in Southern Ontario, there were no out queer folks, there were no out queer femmes, non-binary. It was one gay man who was out. So I literally thought that you could only be a gay man. And I remember from a young age being incredibly supportive and just wanting everybody who I thought could be a gay man, I wanted them to know that I supported them, I loved them and accepted them, which is it's so funny to look back now at how much I was like cheerleader and an ally for everybody to be gay without realizing that I was as well. And then essentially from the age of 14 until around 32, I just had this very slow burn of being in my queerness. I was having crushes. I was even falling in love. I was making out. I was hooking up with women and non-binary babes, and I still had no idea that I was queer or gay, because at the time I was only in a relationship with cis men. So I thought, well, because that's my experience, my other experiences can't be true. There was something happening inside of my brain, inside of my body, that was telling me that they both couldn't be true. And since then, I've come to understand things like pansexual and bisexual and queer, which is 100% the word that I've landed on that feels exciting and supportive for me, or even the word lesbian. And I don't know how to explain it, but like, even if I were to end up in a long-term relationship again with a cis man, I would still identify this huge part of me as lesbian and especially as queer, because at this point I have to acknowledge that I don't know what the journey is. I don't know what the plan is, because I was in awe of how much I was the last to know that I was queer, or, you know, the last to know how real this was for me. I remember coming out to a few friends and they're like, "Oh, Tarea, like, what do you mean? Like, I already knew you were queer. Like, we made out before." And I was like, okay. So I went through this process of trying to understand what felt different to me. Why is it that all these people knew that I was queer? Why was it that I even had all these queer experiences throughout my life, but I had never truly felt it in mind, body, pussy, heart, soul, until this one day it hit me like a lightning. And after I processed it to begin to understand this experience, I came to know it as my second queer awakening, which was due to a lot of somatic intimacy healing and my time as a somatic intimacy coach, which essentially helps the mind, body, heart, soul, pussy, or pelvic floor, genitals, whatever you got going on, come on board all together instead of segregated, separate, and compartmentalized. So maybe in the past I had romantic feelings or even attraction to women, but I had never seen myself in a long-term relationship or in a relationship with a woman. So I had just decided that it was only this like small thing. So I kept it inside, right? I hadn't seen myself in that experience. I didn't know I was even allowed to have that experience because of my past with cis men, and because I even at the time still was very strongly romantically and sexually attracted to cis men. So I had to go through this process of awakening to bring all parts of me on board, to then have this day that felt like lightning, that was like, oh, I'm gay. And then I started crying. And I had this huge opening in my heart, because it was like, oh, what does that mean for me right now? Right now, that means for me, I could see myself having children with a woman. I want to have sex with a woman. I want to fall in love with a woman. I want to talk to them. I want to like intellectually and spiritually connect with them. And just even that realization alone gave me this experience of what I call my second queer awakening. So at the time, I was in a monogamous, hetero relationship, and we were both quite queer, like looking back, like it's hilarious. It's like my whole life was queer. Like me and that guy, like it was very queer. And once I started to process and realize my experience and my feelings and my queerness, I brought it to my partner, who's not my partner at the time, who's not my ex, and we made room in our relationship to open up this relationship in order for me to explore my queerness in this new way, which, was a tender time for everybody. It was so wobbly for me. I had so many feelings. That's like a whole other video. And I'm going to jump to the point where I met a woman who I knew right away. I had like been on a few dates. I had tried dating apps for the first time ever, and nothing was landing, nothing was exciting me. And then I met this woman and I went on a date with her, and I literally knew right away, like it was like an explosion in my whole body. Attraction, spiritual connection, emotional connection, intellectual connection. It was all there. And we had a long distance relationship, classic, for about 3 months before we had slept together. And we had talked almost every single day, and I shared with her a lot of my fears and anxieties that I was having around what I had considered was going to be my first queer sexual experience. Even though I had this list of very queer past experiences, it still like felt in my heart and soul like I had never had sex with a woman before. And I felt like I needed her to know that so that I could relax a little bit and feel more safe and let my guard down. And she was incredible, super supportive. Like, it didn't freak her out or face her or anything, because even while I was in this vulnerability, I was still very confident. At this point, I was years into my career as an intimacy coach. And so I was so well equipped with the tools to be able to navigate this vulnerability and this tenderness. And after I had shared my nervousness, I immediately dropped into this confidence in me that it was like meeting a part of me that I was so proud of and was so ready to meet. It was like this deep certainty inside of me of like devotion. And like, this is the best thing that I could ever be doing. Confidence and attitude came through me. And I remember like her and I's sexual exploration and our whole relationship, it gave me this piece of me that it felt like I unlocked the keys to the universe. It felt like I unlocked the keys to all the work that I had been doing in intimacy coaching. That's how I felt at the time. It's definitely progressed since then to mean a lot more things. Like, I have relaxed, but it was my first like gay relationship, and it exploded me open in my heart and my pussy and my mind and my spirit. And at the time, I thought it was the answers to everything, which isn't like wrong. But I've like chilled out since then, and I've learned a lot more. And I'm just like so excited to now share with you all the things that I've gathered. So I'm gonna pivot the conversation now. So that my first gay relationship with this woman just was a catalyst for me, and it was such a gift. Like, gave me soul, heart level love and like incredible sex. And after we ended up breaking up because I broke up with the 6-year long relationship with the hetero cis man, which rocked me into this grief and this processing of my whole identity. And I had this really profound experience that I could not sustain my relationship with her, because like at that time I was dating them both, and I just could not sustain my relationship with her because I was breaking inside. And honestly, I needed to break. Like, I had been so ready to break open and break down all these barriers and conditionings and identities to rediscover and reemerge from a place of wholeness. So sadly, her and I's relationship did not make it through that fire. And either way, it still gave me this massive gift. So then I went on to like dating and hookups and like all the experiences that felt true for me for the next 2 years. And I've learned so much, and it's been so fascinating to notice and experience the differences of like hetero and queer sex and the similarities of hetero and queer sex and like the crossover. So I want to share with you now all the things that I found super fascinating, because I have a very unique lens of somebody who literally studied sex, sexuality, intimacy. Like I was teaching like genital massages to people. Like, you know, I would teach them to practice on themselves and their partner, because a lot of people didn't even know how to touch themselves, didn't know how to touch a partner. Like before I was even in like a queer relationship, I was teaching my clients how to have queer sex. You know, that like it was so fascinating to have come from that experience and then now being in like a different type of eroticism and exploration and sexuality. And I just find the things that shocked me and didn't shock me were so unexpected. So I'm so excited to share with you what I gathered, what I witnessed, what I experienced, and what I excavated from a very unique lens of like from hetero to queer sex from an intimacy coach background. I'm gonna have a few sips of coffee. So good. So the thing that surprised me a lot was learning how it felt a lot more effortless for women and non-binary folks to attune to the body and to be in a state of giving and receiving. It felt so effortless. It felt so obvious. It was very much this easier access to the feeling of being like ravished and worshipped and adorned, and in a way that just felt so normal, that shocked me so much because I had experienced a lot of hetero relationships and sexual engagements that just felt like way more cookie cutter, felt like not attuned, and that it was a really like challenging, difficult thing to attune and listen to the body and offer pleasure and listen to the heart at the same time. Like it felt like it was so difficult in a lot of hetero relationships that I had, that it blew my mind how like effortless it felt with most of my queer hookups, queer relationships. I will say, like, I had one or two hetero relationships with men, with cis men, that were very attuned, very knowledgeable in the art of, like, the art of sex, because they had a background, let's say, in massage or acupuncture, or like they did their therapy work. So I had experiences, or they were a Scorpio. Born with it. So I had experiences like that, but like percentage wise, it did seem like way more challenging and like caveman, like, what do I do? which gave me a chance and an opportunity to get really good at communicating my desires, opening up my throat chakra, my truth, and then also being able to teach my clients how to maneuver those dynamics as well. Because, you know, if you fall in love with somebody who it just doesn't come naturally, then of course you want to give them a chance to know your body and know what you want, and give them a chance to meet you in that. So even as painful as it was, I gained priceless, invaluable skills. And I just still had this feeling in my body of like, wow, like, how is this so flowy? How is this so effortless? How is it that you so effortlessly want to touch, please, and connect with my body, and that somehow you also still feel connected to my heart and my soul, and also connected to your heart and your soul, that you didn't dissociate from your body in the meantime. So that's one thing that really stood out for me, was this like fluidity, this like, wow, we get to have it all. So of course, as any good queer sex witch does, it had me being in this deeper devotion to what I call pussy consciousness. Like at that point, I had already been teaching the art of like listening to pussy, if you're a pussy bodied being, like listening to your intuition, listening to your desires, and being in devotion to the body, and then also teaching the partners of those beings and those people how to be in devotion to pussy as well. And then when I had my own experience of like receiving this like divine love and adoration in a queer relationship, and then also being able to give that as well, it just exploded something inside of me to then double down on how I think this is so vital for the planet, so vital for us all, because I got to experience so much joy and love in that experience. Some of the contradictory things that shocked me is that I saw this like polarity. I still see it in the queer community, this polarity of like there's the group of people that I end up dating that are very um very conscientious and in their humility, but also really confident, you know, maybe balanced in their masculine and feminine energies. And when I say masculine and feminine energies, you know, when I speak of that, I'm talking about the traditional, like Taoist teachings, and not gendered, and not gender norms or anything like that. And then the flip side that I see in the queer community is this like type of cockiness that I would expect to see in like this like machismo, misogynistic, like hetero world of like, I know how to have sex. I have the best sex because I'm gay, because I'm queer. And like, hey, you might be right. They might be right, but like humility from like my tantric lens, from my somatic intimacy lens, is what allows every single person to tap into the next level of intimacy, the next level of sexual exploration. So I always found that intriguing, because I was like, oh, queerness is about breaking down these norms and these identities and these barriers. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people in the queer community feel really cocky and in their ego about that they don't have anything to learn around sex. And that obviously, like, that's a turn off for me because like I change every single day. My desires today are not what they were a few weeks ago. So I love to be met with this sense of humility. And that, yeah, it just like really shocked me because I wasn't expecting it. Like I expected more from like hetero bros. So yeah, I found that super, super fascinating. It made me giggle. It was like, okay, like like you also have something to learn if you think that you have learned everything and you don't have anything else to learn. Like that tells me that you have something more to learn. And I also, what else was I surprised by? I was surprised by that, like, okay, some very like gold star lesbian connections were actually like quite inexperienced sexually, and just like carried some of the classic insecurities and societal sexual beliefs. And that really surprised me. Like I learned that it's an everybody experience to have shutdowns, to have dissociation, to have anxieties and insecurities about your body and about like your performance in sex. Like performance anxiety, up until now, I had imagined was way more hetero thinking, and it's really everywhere. Like so many people experience this anxiety around performance and around what their body looks like and am I doing this right or not. And that really softened my heart and brought me into this tenderness and ability to just meet everybody where they're at, because we're all just human. And that I really loved getting to see that and learn that, because it reminds me that we're all not so separate as we think that we are, that some people convince themselves they are. You know, I don't like queer versus hetero separation. I want where we're all sitting at the table and we all have something that we're relating to, and we're in that humility and we can have that conversation, that growth mindset, and that learning about intimacy and connection and sexuality. So that really softened my heart, because I see it everywhere. I see performance anxiety everywhere. I see body insecurities everywhere. And you know, it's something that we can all benefit from receiving, healing, and learning from. So there's something really innocent and tender about that. And something that really shocked me as well was that I still saw transactional sex happening in some of my queer experiences, where it was like, you know, getting asked the questions like, did you come? Like, did you orgasm? Which for me is like, I don't want to be asked that from a space of like transaction. Sure, ask me that if you're curious. Ask me that if you want to learn about my body. Ask me that if you want to stay with my body, and keep experiencing more and keep exploring more pleasure. But I absolutely do not want, like, I hate this question if it's because like you're trying to find out if the sex was good or not, because whether or not there was an orgasm or whether or not there was ejaculation. Like that is not a determining factor for good sex. It is not. It is, sure. Is it great? Yes. And there are so many other aspects of sex. There are so many other pieces. So I was surprised. I did only get asked that question once. So I will caveat it with that. It was like a rare experience, but it was also with a gold star lesbian. And I was like, what? That's so wild to me. Like, even if I didn't have an orgasmic experience, I still was in pleasure and I still was connected and I still was having this like beautiful experience, which that comes from my somatic intimacy career, and my tantric knowledge is the exploration of the entire experience, not just being attached to the peak moments, but to be connected and present to every aspect of connection and intimacy. And that is why I teach, and that is what I'm here to help people unlearn those conditionings of attachment, unlearn those transactional ways of relating to somebody's body, because I absolutely do not want transactional body connection. I do not want extractive body connection. I want gentleness and permission and tenderness and ferocity and strength and flow and constantly listening to the truth of what wants to happen, and not like, oh, hey, I took out the garbage today, so you should take out the garbage tomorrow. Is that really true? Like, I don't think it is. I think for me, and from my knowledge and my background, it's much more sexy and true and organic if we're all following our truth, and that truth, whether it's in sex and pleasure and intimacy or just in our day-to-day lives together in the relationship, is going to look different from moment to moment. It may be consistent over a period of time. That's also great. We love consistency as long as it's connected to truth and alignment and not forced transactional keeping track type of ways, because that to me feels very like it feels very colonial, capitalist, patriarchal structures. Not for me. So every time I go into one of these stories, I have to like bring myself back to share what else I discovered. So thank you for being with me during the very raw, authentic aspects of myself in this episode. Very uncensored, unfiltered, raw, spilling the tea with Tarea. Let me take a coffee break. Yeah, another thing that I was really surprised by was the hyper focusing on clitoral orgasm. So in my teachings, in my business, there are so many different types of orgasms. And what I've noticed happening in queer and hetero relationships is either a hyper focusing on the clitoris or a complete ignoring of the clitoris. And so what I've been teaching people for years and years and years is the middle ground and new ways of touching, new ways of self-pleasure, new ways of exploring orgasm. There's the vaginal canal orgasm, there's the G-spot orgasm, there's anal orgasm, there's nipple, like you can experience orgasm in your nipples, in your throat, because like there's erectile tissue in all these places. There's hormones. Our throat is also directly connected to our pelvic floor. So what else did I not mention? Cervical orgasm, energetic orgasm. So like there's full body orgasm, there's orgasmic waves, there's valley orgasm, there's, I haven't experienced this myself yet, but there's third eye orgasm, where you experience like a very spiritual experience. And I love, like, I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky that I get to have access to this buffet of pleasure, this buffet of experiences, so that if I don't want to, have a clitoral orgasm, I can reach for other types of experiences that feel more nourishing and supportive for my body. Clitoral orgasms can be like very heightened, high, intense energy up here, versus like canal orgasms or cervical orgasms that are like a very deep rooted, rich, earthy, long, drawn out type of orgasm that can be very grounding, very nourishing, and like fill my cup up for days. And so just depending on what my body's asking for, I know that I have those options. And if a partner is able to go there with me, then like it is the best of the best. And so I'm very grateful that I have this knowledge. I'm very grateful that I teach this with my clients. And I had to really like relax my heart and relax my like high functioning brain that can go into coach mode with my dates. I had to like relax those parts of me when I would be with somebody, whether that was somebody I was dating or a lover, that didn't have access to all those tools. And I was really in awe of like, right, okay, we're with like the bread and butter here. Okay, that's fine. Wouldn't be fine forever, but I had to humble myself to meet a lot of people where they were at in their understanding of their pelvic floor, their entire pelvic floor, and to recognize that a lot of people are experiencing pain and tension and trauma in this area, and like I can't just go into a coaching place when I'm like on a date with somebody or when I'm like hooking up with them. And so it did give me the experience of like, wow, there are so many beings that are blocked and stuck and don't have access to this information. And again, that like softened my heart and made me want to like double down on sharing this knowledge. And it also meant that like when I did find a compatible partner that was on the same level with me, it was like otherworldly satisfying. When I found a partner that was able to meet me in the same confidence level, but also in the same vulnerability and tenderness, and meet me in the same level of like orgasmic expansion, pleasure attunement, body attunement, presence, and even satiation level. And detachment from the outcome, meaning like, oh, we can also stay here and talk and cuddle for hours and hours and hours and that be fulfilling. Or we could like have sex for hours and hours and hours and not be fulfilling, you know? Wow, so much personal information that you get to hear from me today. Oh my goodness. It's just like, I find it so special and so fascinating. Okay, some other things that was unique for me on like dating apps. I'm gonna be honest, like frustrating. Is that a lot of people were going through heartbreak, going through trauma, feeling blocked in their sexuality and their intimacy in their heart, and would learn about what I do for work and would immediately, probably unconsciously, go into a role of client, which was so exhausting for me because I would constantly have to be like, okay, sounds like you're not ready for dating. You should probably work with me. We're not compatible for dating if you're going to be going into this role of like wanting me as my coach, or even like literally messaging me and saying like, oh, I could really use this work, but then still flirting with me and trying to like get in with me. So that was really exhausting and challenging to navigate as an intimacy coach, which I'm sure would also be challenging in like hetero dating as well. I haven't had that experience yet, but it just requires a lot more boundaries because, people are longing to have that intimacy. People are longing to learn and discover and don't always have the boundaries or the knowledge of being able to self discipline to okay, I would like to work with this person as their client, so I'm going to let them know that and tell them that even though we're on a dating app, like I would way better benefit to have you as a coach than dating. Or they'd be like, I don't want to talk, like they don't have that discipline to be like, I don't want to talk about work because I would just want to date you. A lot of people don't have that discipline. So it ended up requiring me to do a lot more work to have boundaries, which would be exhausting. And I've talked with like other friends who are in similar fields and it's the same for them. And yeah, that's like a sucky part about like dating as an intimacy coach or, counselor or therapist or like sex coach, some of these other professions that are very similar. And a lot of people unconsciously are looking for somebody emotionally attuned, but are actually coming in with so much baggage and avoidance. And yeah, so it's a lot to navigate sometimes out there. So when I do match with somebody or date somebody who is not at all coming in with that, it's just so special and a breath of fresh air for me. And it just means that there's less options, which isn't a problem for me because I believe in like quality over quantity. I date very specifically. I hook up very intentionally. I'm not like coming at it from like a numbers lens, which I know some people do. Sorry to laugh if that's you. I don't mean it harmfully. It just seems, yeah, like, hook up with as many people as you want. I'm just somebody who also likes to feel a lot of compatibility. And I know not everybody needs that. Not everybody needs as much compatibility as I'm looking for. And that's cool. Whatever works for you, I support this. Let me try to think of like some positive surprises. Oh, I want to take that word away. I mean, like nourishing surprises. Yeah, okay. I really am in awe in queer dating and intimacy of the way people step up and the way people put in so much effort to like properly date and adorn and take care of each other and like pay for the bill, like buy chocolates. Like there's just so much more romancing and thought. And it's even almost like the bare minimum. And I find that really relaxing as somebody who grew up very societally conditioned, first as like a hetero woman, and even now as a queer woman. It can be really exhausting. I feel like I have to work way harder. I feel like I'm always thinking about myself and everybody else. And so it's just been really nice and relaxing to be on the receiving end of all this care and appreciation and like people putting in thought for dates and initiating. Okay, people, I think like the queer community could get a little bit better at initiating. I'm like such a boss when it comes to initiating and being direct that I actually exhausted myself and had to like take a step back and be like, okay, honestly, I'm just going to sit in the state of receiving and allow people to come to me. And I do notice like hetero guys it's like a no-brainer for them to like initiate, probably because of societal conditioning, which we could say lots of things about, but there is something nice about the ease and simplicity of hetero guys just not even thinking about that initiation, asking on a date, saying hi, giving a compliment. It's like relaxing for the nervous system to also be on the receiving end of that. So that is something that I would like to see more of in the queer community. I mean, I'm such a switch. I want to be in the receiving, and I also want to be in the giving. I want to be led, and I also want to lead. So I want to see more of that energy in queer dating and queer intimacy, is that taking the lead, taking initiative, being directive. Yeah. Anything else that I feel is, oh yeah, we're gonna end it on this one. So in every single person, doesn't matter whether you're queer, straight, cis, trans, non-binary, every single person has some variation of anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, or secure attachment. Those things are not biased. They, we all have different childhood upbringings. And so you're not going to avoid attachment styles, in any of those realms of dating. So that's one place where we're all just human. We're all just out here fumbling and bumbling about, often being little children in adult bodies who should actually be playing in the forest and leaving dating up to the adults. But yeah, that is a commonality and a place to bring us all together, which I'm a huge fan of. Ending on that note of like, we're all just human. We're all just a bunch of humans, just a bunch of wobbly humans out there doing the best. And so that is where I highly recommend therapy, hiring an intimacy coach, so that you can get the best out of your dating experiences, out of your relationships, out of your sexual experiences that are aligned with your truth and your updated desires, not old, updated conditioning or old trauma or old belief systems. If you are dating, if you are having sex, and you have never been to therapy or never hired an intimacy coach, like, I don't know, man. Unless you had like the most perfect upbringing with like super conscious, educated parents, you're so securely attached, you know everything about intimacy, great. Keep doing you. The world needs you. Share the wealth. Otherwise, I just highly recommend having knowledge, having experience, having understanding that is beyond your upbringing, beyond your conditioning, or beyond all of your exes. Because like a lot of people are bringing their stuff from their exes with them into the next relationship, when actually it's going to be in everybody's interest to have learned and healed and grown from that experience, so that you can be in a new dynamic with a person. The same way it's important to meet somebody's body as if for the first time, instead of coming in and being like, oh, I know what to do because like I did this with my last partner, so I'm going to do that with this person as well. No, every body is different. Sure, you can have your moves. You can have your dating moves, your sex moves. The ones that work, great. If they work, awesome. And like every single body is different. Every single heart and soul is different. So the more that you can come in and engage with a person as if for the very first time, the better chance their body, their heart, and their soul, mind, and spirit are going to get to be seen and heard and blossom and come alive in the relationship and be watered and take up space. which is going to be incredibly healing and supportive for that person. And, you'll be on the receiving end of all of the gifts that come with that. So as many opportunities as you can when you're dating or in a long-term relationship or having sex, keep coming back to that place of like, how can I meet this soul, this body, this being as if for the first time, so that they can show me what they want, they can show me what they need, and then we can work together. We can be in this dance, in this conversation, this physical conversation, this non-verbal conversation, this actual verbal conversation to deal with conflict, to communicate needs and wants, and have healthy texting conversations versus being in like an avoidant, anxious text dynamic because you haven't looked at your childhood trauma. It's a beautiful thing to utilize the vulnerability of dating, sex, intimacy, and long-term relationships as a path of growth and expansion, and inviting yourself to be the best version of yourself and them as well, while also being like, a human who's not perfect, because that's part of it. That's what we're here to do, is to be in the exploration, finding that balance of growth, expansion, growth mindset, and also humility of like, what if I don't know anything? What if I don't have it all figured out? Finding that relationship between those two, I think, is so sexy, is like my modern dating advice for you, is to be in that discovery. Yeah. It's such a wild ride. And, you can also be dating yourself, dating your friends, like not actually dating them, but like in an intimate connection with them, as if you were taking care of them, supporting them, wooing them, crushing on them without being romantic. You can also be dating your purpose and in your career. These are all really beautiful avenues as well to share this exploration, to learn and grow, because often these patterns, these taboos, these neural pathways, they will also show up in your friendships, in your career, in your relationship with yourself. So, if you're in a chapter or a season where you're not really focused on dating or sex or relationships, then you can work through these patterns and neural pathways and sexual patterns through other methods. Because what I mean by pattern is like, let's say the pattern is a square or a circle. That circle is going to show up in your sex life. That circle is also going to show up in your friendships, in your career, in your relationship with yourself, whether that circle represents fear of abandonment, or that circle represents feeling not good enough, or that circle represents, oh, I really just want to be perceived as cool because I didn't fit in as a kid. So like whatever that circle represents pattern wise, you can work through that in multiple ways depending on what season you are currently in. Okay, my darlings, let me know how that landed. Did that spark curiosity? Like, how was this conversation? Because that's how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm in a conversation with the collective right now, with you, the viewer of this. So thank you for being here, and please just let me hear from you. Let me understand where you're at, what landed, what sparked joy, what sparked curiosity, what didn't land. The more that I can be in a conversation with you, the more I can share from my heart, from my purpose, from my truth. So thank you for being here. Yeah, I'm grateful for any support to be able to continue to do the work that I do as an intimacy coach, whether that's support through sharing a post on Instagram, subscribing to my YouTube channel, or listening to my podcast and sharing it to a friend, or booking a one-on-one session with me or coming to one of my workshops. I'm just so grateful for your support, for all of you, for this work, for being alive, for the universe that that constantly communicates with me and who has been inviting me to share this for a few years. So I'm just grateful to be in this hilarious conversation and this very incredible experience for me as an intimacy coach to be able to learn and grow and share and teach. Yeah, it's such a beautiful ride. So thank you for being here. Cheers. Talk to you soon.